Hello and welcome to our first Zoom broadcast. I'm Lisa O'Hare from Human Life International, and I'm delighted to be joined by Aoife Collins. Aoife, welcome to our first Zoom podcast.
Good morning. Thank you, Lisa.
Yes, so today we're going to discuss HLI's recent press release called Can We Talk About IVF? HLI Ireland comments on the Tullamore controversy.
That's right, Lisa. It's one of those very controversial topics, and it blew up really over the Christmas and since has faded away a little bit. But would you like to explain a little bit of the background as to why you put this press release together and released it?
Yes, it all came about from a Facebook post from Tullamore Parish in County Offaly just before Christmas. It included the statement, "The process of IVF damages embryonic stem cells and thus life, and is therefore completely, clearly and totally incompatible with our Catholic faith." Now that Facebook post was actually given in the context of a beautiful prayer, but it caused a huge storm online, various people condemning the post, including the Health Minister Simon Harris. And so much was the outrage at this post that the parish took it down, apologised, and that was the end of the story. And unfortunately, there was no one in Ireland who appeared to stand up for the parish or for Catholic teaching. So we at Human Life International Ireland wanted to release a statement to welcome the words and express our disappointment that the parish felt compelled to apologise for speaking the truth. Patrick McChrystal, our Executive Director at Human Life International Ireland, gave the statement, "Whilst in no way minimising the suffering entailed by infertility, people deserve to know that IVF causes grievous loss of life, is seriously offensive to God, and puts users outside God's plan for their lives." So very strong words from Patrick.
But Lisa, I mean, when we're saying that, we know that IVF is immoral in the eyes of God, but at the same time, we'd be at pains to say that every child is a blessing. Have you anything to add to that?
Well, it's a very complex issue, and it's one that, you know, we would love to unpack in greater detail. Now, for the purposes of our, you know, our short broadcast here, we're not able to unpack fully the Church's teaching, but in section 2377, the Church teaches that it is morally unacceptable to disassociate the sexual act from the procreative act. Again, let's see, it's so rich. We talked about that inseparable connection that's established by God, which man of his own initiative may not break. And that's between the unitive significance and the procreative significance, which are both inherent to the marriage act. So it comes down to fundamentally what the sexual act is for. And by going outside of God's design and purpose for that, we're going outside of his plan. And the Church, we stated here that Catholics have the right to be informed that the Church teaches that IVF is gravely immoral.
Yeah, there's very little said. You never hear this topic being discussed. I know it's very controversial. It's very upsetting for some people. But at the same time, I guess we have to share the truth and try and discuss it even amongst ourselves as Catholics, even if it's painful, that this is a cross that many people carry day in, day out. And even IVF itself has broken marriages, caused financial difficulties, and so on. And so maybe it's wise for all of us to know about these teachings before we even consider any of these technologies that scientists are bringing before us. It's very tempting when it's there to use it, you know?
Well, yes, and you know, the Church teaches one of the most recent documents, Donum Vitae, you know, that the authors and proponents and practitioners, they're usurping the place of God. And that's fundamentally what comes down to, you know, a child. The Catechism teaches that a child is not something owed to one or owed to us, but as a gift. Yes. And it's the supreme gift of marriage, you know, to be able to bring into life a human person. And, you know, we have to look at the child's rights, the child's rights to be the fruit of the specific act of conjugal love of its parents, and the right to be respected as a person from the very moment of conception. You know, we've had a very huge pro-life battle in Ireland, talking about the dignity and the sacred nature of life from the moment of conception. So that train of thought, and that, you know, also then flows into this discussion about IVF that we must be allowed to have. We must be allowed to talk about this. And when you talk about the dignity of human life, IVF causes huge destruction to human life. We know that embryonic fertilized cells are either stored, frozen, destroyed, discarded. We know that for every life that's conceived through IVF, there are very, very many more lives lost. That's why, again, we're trying to state that this should be banned. And we
see that. That's very strong, isn't it? I mean, do you think the public, how they'd react to that? I mean,
it would be it's hugely controversial. And the church doesn't talk that every immoral act has to be banned, of course. But when human life is at stake, that's when the church is very clear. This is the distinction. And, you know, it's very difficult to talk about the pain of couples who want a child. But again, we know, and the church teaches that the ends can't justify the means. You know, and again, going back to what is the loss and what is the cost of the human life brought forth through IVF, and just to
there's a line there, Lisa, in the Catechism 2379, and you know, it addresses that problem of spouses who suffer from infertility. The exact line is: spouses who still suffer from infertility after exhausting legitimate medical procedures should unite themselves with the Lord's cross, the source of all spiritual fecundity. You know, and then it goes on to say they can give expression to their generosity by adopting abandoned children or performing demanding services for others. So,
you see,
not easy.
No, and
not easy.
It comes back to the Lord. You know, people will confuse the church teaching with the body of the Catholic Church who wants to condemn. What the church is Christ himself and what he's taught us. And you must look to Christ on the cross. And by going outside of God's plan, what we are doing is we are saying to God, we don't need you. We are giving technology power over you. We are trusting technology above you. And the greatest pain that our Lord faced on the cross, we're told, is the lack of trust in his mercy, the lack of trust in his plan, the lack of trust in where he's guiding us and what he teaches us. And that is a huge issue at the heart of Irish society, is that we are trying to take God out of every element of society, including the most intimate acts between husband and wife. We want to remove God, and that is at the heart of this issue. And of course, there are very many people with a legitimate and a desire for a child, but then to take the role of God is where this becomes very difficult. And when you take God out of any circumstance in your life, you're turning your back on the Creator who loves you and the Creator who loves each individual precious life. And when we turn our back, then it leads to all sorts of consequences. And again, the Catholic Church needs to speak. Our pastors, our leaders need to be able to have the conversation. Let's look at IVF and what it is. Even if, you know, when you're taking out God from the equation, this is a multi-million pound industry. You type in IVF, it's an industry, and it's trading on life. It's trading on children. And whilst the emotional part of the argument is very real and very painful, we still must be able to look beyond that pain and that emotion to say, what is this? When we take God out of his role as creator of life and we take upon this or give this role to doctors, physicians, scientists, where does this lead to? And it leads to widespread destruction of human life, but it also leads to a society that has lost its roots of where children are coming from. And this goes into a huge issue, as you know, into surrogacy, into children being conceived without two parents, without knowing one or other parent. And all sorts of confusion. And that is what the Lord in his love is trying to guide us against.
And Lisa, why do you think that maybe our hierarchy, bishops, priests, aren't speaking out on this? I mean, it's probably a fairly obvious thing. They feel it's going to be upsetting. And
I mean, I can't speak. I mean, it's very difficult for us as Catholics when our leaders are absent or missing in action. I mean, this was a perfect opportunity to say, to state the obvious, that IVF damages embryonic cells and is clearly incompatible with our Catholic faith. If we are brave enough to have this conversation, it opens up an opportunity to teach, to learn, to grow, to wrestle with the truth. And for whatever reason, our pastors seem to be afraid of that battle. They're afraid of a confrontation, I think, from my humble perspective, another confrontation where the church is put out to be bashed. But yet the Lord is big enough, and he's God, and he wants us to wrestle with the truth. He is inviting us into a conversation, and it's we need to have it. And we would implore our bishops, our priests, our leaders, our families to have these conversations, implore the power of the Holy Spirit, be brave and have these conversations. And as what we entitled our press release, Can We Talk About IVF?
Freedom of speech is very important. And
it's a huge dimension. Yeah, it's a huge dimension to this. Sorry, Aoife, go on.
I'm just thinking about Minister Simon Harris and how he actually interfered with, you know, our Catholic teaching, and he really seems to be willing to try and curb democracy by, you know, putting his foot in on top of everything we're trying to talk about, trying to, you know, even with the pro-life vigils, he wants to have exclusion zones. So anything that is pro-life, pro-family, you know, he's out there bullying the rest of us.
And they want to shut down their voices. You know, we're out of time, and we would love to continue this conversation, but that is where our press release concluded. Patrick said that any parish must be free to discuss, advance and inform their parishioners on Catholic Church teaching without being attacked by politicians and the media. This attack was an attack on religious freedom, and it does set a worrying precedent of the church being silent on really important matters. So hopefully this will start a conversation. We'll invite our listeners to get in touch. Let's have the arguments, ask us the questions, and we will certainly do our best to answer them. But we would implore you to go to the heart of the church, go to Christ in the Eucharist, in adoration, ask him the difficult questions, and he will give you the answers.
Lisa, just to end, what's our website address?
It's humanlife.ie. Please, yes, visit the website. This will hopefully be posted online, Facebook and Twitter, and we'll get the press release will be up online as well. So please do visit, get in touch, and we look forward to more conversations. Thanks a million, Aoife.
Thanks, Lisa. Have a good day. God bless.
Okay, God bless. Bye-bye.